Yeah, those comments from the US Secretary of State that the strongest yet that there may be some sort of action against Syria sent the price of oil on the Brent crude index over $111 to a 5-month high. It's fallen back slightly since then. It's around $110 a barrel now, trading in London. Now, oil analysts say the likelihood of the growing likelihood of some sort of US-led military response will keep the price up. John Kerry's remarks also hitting trading on the stock markets. In Asia, brokers say there's no panic selling, but investors are holding on to their cash a little bit longer to try to see how the situation in Syria develops. A mixed picture you can see on the indices there. In Europe, trading has just begun, also starting in the red as well in Europe. Shares in the troubled car maker Peugeot Citroën in France jumped 2.5% on opening after UBS upgraded its shares to buy. Meanwhile, the copper company Antofagasta are reporting that their shares are down over 2% after fallen profits in the first 6 months of the year due to the falling price of copper.
OK, that's the stock market. It's going to talk currency markets now. Emerging economies like India and Brazil been hit pretty hard recently, haven't they?
Yeah, the value of the Indian rupee fallen to a new low against the dollar again today. Investors are starting to move away from emerging economies as the US recovery picks up. Now, Brazil's also been affected. Its currency, the real, has fallen some 16% against the dollar. It's made life for many Brazilians even more difficult as they struggle with an increased cost of living. William Hildebrandt has the story.
From glory days to tough times. 2 years ago, Brazil's currency was too strong. But since May, it's tumbled the most out of the world's major currencies. Investors began to bet on a U.S. recovery while turning their backs on emerging markets like Brazil and India. In 2 years, the real has dropped 37% against the U.S. dollar.
Many products that are made in Brazil are constructed with parts that come from outside the country. The rise of the dollar makes the cost of production go up and pressures the country's internal inflation even more.
Annual inflation as of July stands at 6.27%, nearly above the government's target limit. Recent protests saw millions of people on the streets, with anger from poor public services to the rising cost of living. Over the past year, the country's largest food import, wheat flour, spiked 29%.
For the last year, prices keep going up. The more time that passes, the worse things are getting. It's difficult for the president to handle.
Brazil's central bank committed $60 billion to prop up the real, with plans to intervene in foreign exchange markets with daily cash and currency swaps. The fall of the currency could complicate an expected re-election bid by President Dilma Rousseff next year. Her approval ratings were among the highest in the world, but since the protest, she's been under fire to increase spending and gain credibility as a fiscally responsible leader.
Going to talk about France now. Unions and employers have been meeting the government to talk about the tricky topic of pension reform.
Yeah, that's right. It's day 2 of discussions between those 3 very important parties on this very difficult issue for France. The government's trying to plug what will be a €20 billion hole in its pension fund by 2020. Workers, of course, are very concerned about keeping their pension rights, while employers are particularly worried about the cost of labour and bringing that down.
If we do manage to include reducing the cost of labour in these discussions with the government, and it's not about reducing it by just a few percent, we could then move forward and, if needs be, increase by 1/10 the supplementary social security contributions to sort out the problem of retirement.
And now to the US. Next, the Treasury Secretary there has been warning the government could run out of money by mid-October.
Jack Lew was writing to congressional leaders to urge them to increase the government's borrowing limit, this famous debt ceiling we've heard so much about. The US is running up against its maximum debt limit, which is $16.7 trillion. It's been hitting that since around May, but they've been able to have emergency cash flow measures to keep the government paying its bills. Now, Mr. Lew says that leeway could run out by mid-October, about 6 weeks' time. Republicans, of course, have been using this debt ceiling debate to try and push their own agenda in Congress, but some very serious looming consequences if they can't come to an agreement. Let's move on now with a look at some of the day's other business news. And the Australia surfwear maker Billabong has said that its brand is now worthless after posting losses that are 3 times the company's value. The firm lost $776 million in the year to June. It's already closed stores and cut costs in an effort to stem the losses. Shares in Billabong have fallen by up to 16% in Sydney.
Facebook's market value has risen to over $100 billion amid optimism about how much money it can make from mobile advertising. Now, shares in the social network reached an all-time high of almost $42 on Wall Street on Monday evening. Increasing confidence in Facebook's earning power has boosted shares by 55% so far this year.
And Japan's largest airline has confirmed it's buying a 49% stake in the Burmese carrier Asian Wings Airways. All Nippon Airways will invest $25 million in the company, the first foreign investment in the Burmese airline industry. Asian Wings Airlines operates domestic routes in Burma and is currently a profitable company.
Now, we're changing our agenda a little bit on France 24. We've got celebrity gossip for you. It is celebrity gossip with a bit of a business angle, though. Which celebrity is raking in the most cash is the question.
Tenuous link at best. Forbes magazine have published their list of top celebrity earners. This year, she's still the material girl. It's Madonna.
She's still in vogue.
Exactly, yeah. Good, well done. She raked in $125 million in the last year, mainly down to her MDNA tour, boosted by sales of clothing and fragrances. Number 2 on the list, director Steven Spielberg. He had a good year with his film Lincoln. He took in $100 million and tied for 3rd place the X Factor judge Simon Cowell, the shock jock Howard Stern, and the author of the 50 Shades of Grey book, E.L. James. They are $95 million each. Now, Forbes have pointed out their assessment doesn't include tax deductions, agent fees, or the regular expenses involved with being a celebrity. Notable absences, of course, you, me, and Florence Villamino.
And Francis L. Perhaps next year, guys. You never know. We might get in there one day. I doubt it somehow, though. Thanks very much, Stephen. Stephen with business on France 24. Now, though, it's time to go over the other side. The desk flows here with the papers.